something like that.
Religion is a box I do not fit in. I am metaphysical, I am transcendent. Change a situation by changing your mind. Raise the vibration by knowing you are divine. Make a mental path, one step repeat. I surrender to the presence of God in me. Make a mental path, one step repeat. Practicing the presence of the Goddess in me. What do you believe? You've got to know your truth, your potential possibility, that is you. If you stand in opposition, you perpetuate the thing. Would you resist, persist, so let love be what you bring. Make a mental path, one step repeat. I surrender to the presence of God in me. Make a mental path, one step repeat. I am practicing the presence of the Goddess in. Oh, make a mental path, one step just to surrender to the presence of the God in you. Make a mental path, one step just to practicing the presence of the Goddess in you. Yeah. Follow your intuition and the passion that you got. Be pulled by your vision, don't get pushed by your thoughts. Everything experienced is energetic, so be aware of energy you give and you get it. Out of the routine, slip into observer state. Change your mind by changing habits, choose a different way. Say yes to your highest and your best, cause what you desire, you could straight up manifest. That's really good news. You should cheer for that. 1, 2, 3. Make a mental path, one step repeat. I surrender to the presence of God in me. Make a mental path, one step repeat. Practicing the presence of the Goddess in me. Yeah. Make a mental path, one step. Richard Schumann on the piano, everyone. Merci.
Somebody said that was funky, and they were right. It's always funky and a lot of fun when Amy Steinberg is in the house. Amy, thank you so much for being here. Yeah. Amy previously lived in Charlotte and was the music director for a church there. She has since moved to California. She's in San Diego, where she's the music director for a Center for Spiritual Living. So she's just here for a few days. We happen to have the joy of being the church that she chose to be with on Sunday. So again, thank you. Welcome this beautiful Palm Sunday. Every time that we gather on a Sunday, we like to begin in the awareness that we are all an expression of the one. I like to say we're all a chip off the original source block. And we can never be disconnected from our source, but we can think we are or think ourselves apart. And so we join in this awareness of our connection to each other and to our source. Would you join me in this affirmation? There is only one presence and power active in the universe and in my life, God, the good, omnipotence. and then our mission together. We are an inclusive, inspiring, spiritual community, embracing our divinity and joyfully evolving together. With that, I invite you to join in an opening prayer. As we turn our awareness within this morning, we do so in that spirit of gratitude and expectancy. There's always a dimension within us that is never bound by space or time or just what we can see with the human eyes. But there's a dimension of us that is far greater, the higher self. We join together this morning in that awareness and realizing that it is that which brings us here. And that there are blessings for us individually and collectively as we open our hearts, our minds, our entire being. Today we enter into this place of gratitude. Gratitude has the capacity to recognize and to give thanks. And it is in that recognition and the heart opening that we become open for this presence of life to flow through us unbounded. Today we celebrate, we seek and find, we bless and we are blessed. And for this we are truly grateful. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen. I invite you to stand as you're able and join in our opening song that says it's in every one of us. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us, by and by. It's in every one of us to be true. Find your voice and let your soul shine through. We can all know everything without ever knowing how. It's in every one of us here and now. It's in every one of us here and now. So that love light that is within you, I invite you to turn and welcome those around you as you acknowledge that namaste, honoring the divinity in each and every one. All right. This song talks about higher ground, which we know is a higher vibration, higher awareness. Here we go. I'm pressing on the upward way, new heights I'm gaining each and every day, still praying as I'm homeward bound. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's Yeah. Here we go. Yeah.
There's no desire to stay where doubts arise and fears dismay. Though some may dwell where these abound, my aim is higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher place that I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. You got it, sing it again. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher place that I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher. Last line. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground.
Yeah, higher vibrations sound beautiful. Yes. You sound beautiful. Thank you. You may be seated. Our guitarist, Dave De La Rosa, is out of town, but have no fear. This amazing band, Richard Schulman, Joel Pressman, and Pete Latrella. Would you show them our love and appreciation this morning? We'd also like to ask if we have any young people that are not back in the youth area. If you'd like to go over to the youth program, any of our children like 7 and younger, for our second service, we have an opportunity for them. Do we have anyone that wants to head over today? Nobody's inner child is making you run to the door? All right, so we're going to take this opportunity. If you change your mind and want to head over, you can actually go out that door and around, so you don't have to walk in front of everybody. We want to take this opportunity to acknowledge anyone that may be here today for the first time or here for the first time in a very long time. We'd like to acknowledge your presence and extend a blessing to you. If you would just simply raise your hand, our welcoming team will meet you with a connections card. So just hold your hand up for just a moment, giving them an opportunity to find you. Unity folks lovingly point to those that held up their hand. We've got some over here on the first row, and then Taria, we've got some over here on the first row. So giving you your workout. And then there's some back in this direction. Go this way, and then that way, and then that way. So we would like to welcome you, especially this beautiful Palm Sunday. We are blessed by your presence. We want you to know that, and we hope that you feel that love and appreciation and that you are blessed by your being here. We do have packets of information about the spiritual community. If you'd like to stop just outside the bookstore by that counter as you're heading out the front door, you can pick up one of those packets, and it'll give you a little more information. We'd also like to extend this special welcome to each of you that are newcomers today. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the divinity in you. We truly thank you for being here today. If you've not yet sent your cell phone into the silence, we would greatly appreciate that. If you can turn it completely off or airplane mode, that really does help us keep things nice and crisp and clear, and we do appreciate that. I'd like to highlight just a few announcements. I'm sure when you came in, you probably noticed a few things. If you didn't, you didn't get your coffee this morning because there's all sorts of stuff set up in the foyer. And you'll hear just a little bit more later from Sarah, and she's going to be here tomorrow. But we partner with the Center for Development in Central America. We had a number of individuals. If you made the trip and you're in this service, those of you that went to Nicaragua earlier this year, would you please stand and let us acknowledge you? So Sarah Woodard, who is the liaison, and she's here from Nicaragua, she's just going to share a few photographs briefly later in the service, and then she'll be here tomorrow with a full presentation tomorrow night. But a lot of the arts and crafts come from that community, those communities, and it's one of the many ways that we like to give back and to support to them. So The other thing that we'd like, the next thing is to let you know that next Sunday is Easter. And so in preparation of this Thursday night, Reverend Laura Collins and Reverend Christy will be leading a Holy Thursday, or Holy Maundy as it is called in some traditions, service on Thursday night if you'd like to come out for that sort of contemplative service. And then Easter, we have our regular services at 9:45 and 11:30. We'll have some extra musicians and just a really wonderful service. But if you're feeling an early Easter sunrise service, there's an opportunity to go out on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it's by the Arboretum. The French Broad Overlook by the Arboretum. So Rev Laura, you'll see Rev Laura in a few minutes, and she can tell you more about that. But that's at 7 a.m., and it will be a shorter service out over the overlook. Afterwards, if you'd like, there's an organized opportunity to go to breakfast. And then if you're still feeling very Easterish, you can come on back over here and join in that service as well. So lots of Easter opportunities for you there. The next announcement we'd like to highlight, we're so delighted and blessed to have the one and only Richard Schulman as our music director here with us every week. Yeah. He's just a huge support and inspiration to us, and he feels the inspiration back. He is ready to release a brand new CD, so we are helping him launch his CD in a new release party on April 7th. And so if you'd like to come out for that, those tickets are available, and just see Richard. He can tell you more about it. He will be serving refreshments, and I'm pretty sure lemonade will be involved, so thank you for that. The next announcement, we're so excited to take our Love is Power on the road, because it's about how do we really awaken. And so I'm going to be going out to Unity Village, the Unity headquarters at Unity Village in Kansas, in the outside of Kansas City, Missouri, in May. It's over Mother's Day weekend, where I will be leading a retreat with some others there, where we're focusing on our spiritual centers known as the 7 chakras, and how the Christ presence, and you put those together with New Thought teachings. There's some very powerful things that can awaken within you. So if that appeals to you, there's more information about that out in the foyer. I also want to let you know that Amy, who is with us today, we're so blessed to have her. She's also working on a new CD, and she has what's called a Kickstart program, so you can be a part of that, and you can see her about that a little bit later. Today, you will be blessed to hear our Associate Minister, Reverend Laura Collins, share the Palm Sunday message. We're truly blessed to have her serving in many capacities, and she's a wonderful speaker, among many other things. And she had asked me to share this reading, which comes from the Gospel of Mark. It's in preparation of the Palm Sunday story, and how she's going to break that down for so what does it mean in our life today. And so I'd like to share with you this reading from the Gospel of Mark. As the master teacher Jesus and his disciples and a large crowd were leaving Jericho, Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside when he heard that Jesus from Nazareth was there, and so he began to shout out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Many sternly ordered him to be quiet, but he just got louder. He cried even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stood still and said, "Call him over to me." They called the blind man, saying, "Take heart, get up, he's calling you over to him." So throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said, "My teacher, let me see again." Jesus said immediately to him, "Go, your faith has made you whole." Immediately, he regained his sight and followed him on his way.
Good morning. My eyes are wide and open. My eyes can see. And my mind the light, you are the light, you are the light. Come on. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Or I'm going to give you a part, it's going to be easy. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Let me hear you sing it. Turn to someone, look them in the eyes and tell them, you are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Pick another person. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Close your eyes and picture your inner child. You are the light, you are the light, you are the... One more time for that sweet little inner child. All right, y'all can cut it out. We keep going. You are the light, you are the light. You are the light. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah. You are the light, you are the light. Unity of Blue Ridge, you are the light bringers. You are the light, you are lighting the way for the world. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Just voices, no clap. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Great job, everyone. You're all going to come on the road with me. Give it up one more time for your band, please.
And for Amy. Thank you, Amy. I am awake now. So today in traditional church calendar is Palm Sunday, the last Sunday before Easter. And it's called Palm Sunday, because on this day, Christians remember the story of Jesus entering into the city of Jerusalem, this capital city, to celebrate the Passover with his friends. So today, I would like to walk through that story with you. So I just want to say, if you're one of those people in this community that gets a little nervous when we have too much Bible or Jesus going on, just take a deep breath. Ride with me through this. And if you're one of those people that several of you have told me, I love Jesus, that's great. Just go on loving him and just know he's my boyfriend. It's like the bumper sticker says, Jesus loves you, but I'm his favorite. So Jesus coming into Jerusalem for the Passover was a really big deal. Their word had spread about him throughout Judea, and from Galilee, where he lived, down to the capital city in Jerusalem, where he was walking that day. And Jerusalem, you have to understand, was the capital city of Judea, and it was the religious center for the Jewish faith. And it was also a stronghold of the Roman Empire, because all of that area was under the occupation of Rome at that time. And rumors were going around that Jesus might be the new Jewish Messiah. Now, for many Jews, this meant that he would be the one to save them from their Roman occupiers. Salvation, in the language of that day, was not about getting into heaven. It was about getting free. So when people said they wanted Jesus to save them, they meant quite literally, they wanted Jesus to free them from the Roman occupiers so that they would no longer be part of the empire. He was coming for Passover, which is the biggest feast of the Jewish year, and it is the one that commemorates the Hebrew people getting out of slavery in Egypt when Moses led them out. And so a lot of people had this idea, if Jesus is the new Jewish Messiah and he's coming for the Passover, maybe it's because there's going to be a new Passover. There's going to be a new time when we're going to get out of the slavery of the Roman Empire. Now, of course, people had also heard stories about Jesus being a healer, like we saw or heard in the story of Bartimaeus. And like people today flock to Brazil to see John of God, or flock to Lourdes in France to be near that healing energy, some people just wanted to get close enough to be near that healing energy they believed he had. So for these two reasons, to see a political savior and to see a faith healer, throngs of people came out and just lined the streets to watch him and sing to him. And many of them were waving branches. Some of those were palm branches, or they were putting palm branches on the road in front of him, and that's why we call it Palm Sunday. So we're going to look at this story and see what Jesus does and what that says about him and what it tells us about our own journey. And as we look at this Palm Sunday story, I also want to look at a couple of other stories too. Because whenever I read the Bible, I want to put the thing that I'm focusing on in context. So I like to see what comes before it and what comes after it. In each gospel, things are arranged a little differently because the gospel writers wanted to make certain points. So there are 4 gospels in the Bible: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then there were also some other gospels, Gnostic gospels, and the Gospel of Thomas that didn't make it into the Bible. And each of these gospels is written from a particular perspective, a viewpoint, and they tell a slightly different story. Some of the stories remain the same from one gospel to the next, but sometimes they're put in a different timeline because they're trying to get a different angle on the story. Mark's gospel was the first one to be written down, and so a lot of historians and biblical scholars believe that it's probably the most historically accurate. It's also the shortest, so if you're thinking about just reading one gospel, that might be a good place to start. So the story that Rev. Darlene read this morning was from Mark's gospel, and it comes exactly before the story of Palm Sunday. And as you recall, there's this blind beggar, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, who is shouting out when he hears that Jesus is coming by. He just starts shouting out, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Now, the fact that he said son of David is significant. It probably indicates that he was one of the Jewish people who believed that Jesus might be the new Messiah, because the Messiah was supposed to be in the lineage of King David and to become another great king, a great leader of Israel, as David had been. So he says, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And everyone tries to shush him. Shush, 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 shush. You're not important enough. Shush. Well, he won't be shushed. He just keeps getting louder. And he stops Jesus in his tracks. Jesus stops and is like, "Who's that guy? Come here." And so they bring Bartimaeus up, and Jesus asks this question: "What do you want me to do for you?" Imagine, if you will, for just a moment, that by some chance of fate, you were to run into Jesus this week, and he were to ask you this question: "What do you want me to do for you?" Do you know what you'd say? Let's just take a minute to drop in and think, what would I say? What do you want me to do for you? Bartimaeus knew. He had a ready answer. He knew what he needed. He knew what he desired. "I want to regain my sight," he said. He knew what he wanted. He wasn't afraid to ask for it. And what does Jesus say in response? "Go. Your faith has made you well." Notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, "I heal you." He says to him, "Your faith has made you well." And this is, in fact, what Jesus says almost every time someone experiences healing in his presence. Go. Your persistence, your willingness to ask, your knowing what your desires are, these have made you well. And Bartimaeus' eyes were opened, and he followed Jesus on the way. Before we can get to Jerusalem, our eyes must be opened. And by Jerusalem, I mean that place where heaven and earth meet. That place where our divinity and our humanity get integrated. That place where, as in the Lord's Prayer, we say, "On earth as it is in heaven." Before we can move forward on the way to that place, we need to regain our sight. We need vision. To embark on a spiritual quest, we need to be awake. Rachel Naomi Remen tells the story of working with a surgeon named Josh. Now, Josh was a very gifted cancer surgeon, but he'd become very depressed, and so depressed that he was completely cynical and disillusioned about the work he did anymore, and he was thinking of taking an early retirement and just leaving it all behind. And he went to Remen with this depression, and she worked with him for a while, and then she said to him one day, "Josh, here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to start journaling every night before you go to bed, and I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. What surprised you today? What touched you? What moved you today? What inspired you today?" And he sort of thought, okay, I'll try it. And he went home, and for a couple of weeks he tried, and every night he got the same answers. Nothing, nothing, and nothing. So he came back, and he told her, this isn't working. And she said, well, let's try it a little differently. Let's imagine that you are outside yourself, and you're watching your life. Maybe like an investigative reporter, or like a novelist looking for the story. And see if that helps you answer those questions. So he went back and he tried again, and after a while he began to start to think of some things. And he would notice in his journal at night, I'm surprised that that tumor grew, or I'm inspired that that medicine worked. And as he got into practice, he began to go a little deeper, and he started really noticing the people he was working with. And he'd say, I'm surprised that they are still so loving through all this pain, or I'm inspired at their determination to live. And at first, he would only notice that at night when he was journaling, but the better he got at it, the more he paid attention, he started noticing it in the moment. And he'd be sitting with these people, and he'd recognize his surprise or his inspiration or how they were moving him. And everything changed for him one day when Josh decided to say something to the person who was right in front of him. It was a woman who'd had ovarian cancer. She was young. She was just in her 30s. And she had been really suffering through this, the pain of the cancer and also the pain of the chemotherapy that she was going through. And this day in the office, she had her 2 young daughters with her who were about 4 and 6 years old. And he looked at her and he said, "You are such a good mother. I love watching how you love those girls." And for the first time in these months and months that he'd been seeing her, she smiled. After that, he began doing this more often, and everything began to shift. His relationship with his patients changed completely. They began opening up to him. They began sharing their lives with him. He became able to receive that and to see it in them. When he went back to Remen later and told her this story, he said, people have begun to express their gratitude for the work I do. And I get gifts. I recently got this stethoscope. And she looked at him and said, "And what does that do, Josh?" And he laughed at her because they were both doctors. And she said, "You know what it does." And then a light bulb went off and he said, "I listen to people's hearts. I listen to people's hearts." It's as the author Marcel Proust said, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. For a journey into the heart of God, our eyes need to be opened to the way. We need to open that energy center that moves us from just seeing what we see right in front of us to having a higher vision of what's going on. So right after this story of Bartimaeus in the New Testament is Jesus' entry into Jerusalem, and it's kind of a funny story. So Jesus has been walking all over Galilee. He doesn't need anything to ride. He's a walker. He walks all over the place. But today, he's on this hill just outside of Jerusalem, and he's going to go down into Jerusalem, into the walled city. And he says to his disciples, I need you to go to this certain house, and I want you to untie a little donkey you're going to find there and bring it to me. And they're like, well, what do we say if the owner comes out and wants to know what we're doing? And he says, well, just tell him the master needs it. So they do what he says. They go exactly to the house, and sure enough, the donkey's exactly where he said it was going to be, and they start to take it, and the owner comes out, and they say, the master needs it. And he's like, fine, go, take the donkey. So, yeah. So Jesus gets on this little donkey, and have any of you ever ridden a donkey? Anybody here ever ridden a donkey? Yeah. I rode one down to the Grand Canyon once. That was, I don't recommend it. But if you've ever seen somebody riding a donkey, it's not really very elegant. You know, you're kind of like this on this little thing, you're just barely off the ground, and it's not impressive. And so here's Jesus going through these throngs of people who are singing to him and waving at him, and he's on this little donkey. And you have to ask, why? Why was he on this little donkey? And a lot of writers and teachers have said, well, he needed to show that his humility. You know, people expected him to come in on the white horse, the stallion, you know, ride in and save the day. And he was showing that he was humble, and that's not what he was going to do. And that's true. But I really like what the writer Marcus Borg has said about this. Borg is a New Testament scholar that we sell some of his books in our bookstore. And he's one of my favorite writers on this topic. And so this is what he says about that donkey ride. On Palm Sunday, Jesus entered Jerusalem from the east in a procession riding a donkey cheered on by his followers. At the same time, a Roman imperial procession of troops and cavalry, so the ones on the big horses, were entering the city from the west, headed by Pilate. Their purpose was to reinforce the Roman garrison stationed near the temple for the season of Passover when tens of thousands of Jewish pilgrims arrived in the city. The contrast between Jesus' entry and the imperial entry sounds the central conflict that unfolds during the rest of the week. Jesus' mode of entry was symbolic, signifying that the kingdom of which he spoke was a kingdom of peace. According to the prophet Zechariah, the king entering Jerusalem on a donkey was to banish the weapons of war from the land and seek peace for the nations. The kingdom of Rome, on the other hand, was based on violence and the threat of violence. And so, Borg concludes this section, it is clear that Jesus prearranged this way of entering the city. In modern language, he writes, it was a planned political demonstration. In modern language, it was a planned political demonstration. Yesterday, I joined hundreds of folks here in up in Asheville for the March for Our Lives. And my son, who is in Chapel Hill, texted me that morning and said, guess where I am? And started sending me pictures from the march in Washington, D.C., where he and a number of other students had gone. When I came home, I wanted to post a few photos of the march on Facebook, and I just found my feed filled with pictures from all over the country, everywhere I'd lived, the Northeast, Washington, obviously, the Midwest, and pictures from the Northwest and the Southwest. Everywhere I knew people, they were posting pictures of the demonstration that they had been to that day for the March for Our Lives, which was in conjunction with, it was led by the students of Parkland, Florida, and it was against gun violence. And I found myself in tears as I was listening to some of the speeches that the young people in Washington offered. So why do people plan and attend marches like that? Like the one where Dr. King, gave his I Have a Dream speech, or like the Women's March last year. Why do people plan demonstrations like the one at Standing Rock, where Native peoples came together to protect their water and their land from the possibility of an oil pipeline? People march, as we say in Our Love is Power, to stand up, to speak up, to show up. Marches in and of themselves don't have a lot of political efficacy. But what they do is remind people that they're not alone. The marches energize and inspire. They encourage and uplift. They give voice to that discontent that you're feeling about whatever that issue is, and they raise it to a higher level. They give a bigger vision of what to do with that sense of discontent. And sometimes they serve as a warning to those in power. They're a way of saying, ignore us at your own risk. We are here, and we're not going away. Palm Sunday was just such a demonstration. Palm Sunday was engaged spirituality. Engaged spirituality is when we take our love that we experience in our hearts, that we know of God in us, out into our communities to make a difference. Engaged spirituality means speaking truth to power. Engaged spirituality means connecting with people who are on the margins, speaking up for people whose voice has been silenced, standing side by side with people whose lives are being threatened, with the earth when its life is being threatened. Engaged spirituality is recognizing that love and compassion, if those are the goals, if these virtues are our goals, then how they play out in the world around us makes a difference. As theologian Cornel West has said, never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. Never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. Now, Jesus could have stayed in Galilee. He could have kept teaching and healing. There was no real need for him to go into Jerusalem and face this confrontation. But Palm Sunday is a story of engaged spirituality, of taking the larger view of what it means to live out our principles, beyond what it means just for me or my family. What does it mean for the world's family? What does it mean for the earth family? This story tells us that to enter Jerusalem, to be on that journey to the place where the Holy of Holies is known, where our humanity and our divinity are integrated, is to engage the parade along the way, is to join our voices with those who are shouting out. We need to open that energy center where our voice can speak the truth. We could stop there, and we would be done with Palm Sunday. But I think what comes immediately after this is just as interesting as what came before it. Right after this parade, directly as he gets into the city, Jesus goes to the temple. And does anybody remember what he did when he got to the temple? Speak it out, I can't hear you up here. Turned over the tables of the money changers in front of the temple. Got out his whips even. Yeah, I read that story, and there's actually another little piece in there. I think Jesus was a little hangry. Because right before that, he walks by a fig tree, and it doesn't have any figs on it, and so he curses the fig tree. It wasn't even the season for figs. But he gets to the temple, and he clears out the money changers from the temple. Now, it's important to recognize that the money changers were not doing anything wrong. For people coming to the temple for the Passover, they would expect to make sacrifices that day. And that was the tradition. You would buy a dove or a quail or maybe a lamb, and you would take it into the altar and you would make your sacrifice. And in order to have that animal, you'd have to buy it. And in order to buy it, you'd have to change money. So all of this was an honored part of the tradition. And Jesus was a practicing Jew. He was a teacher in the tradition. I imagine that he had been to Jerusalem any number of times and done this. So why today does he create all this drama and this havoc? Maybe it's still part of the planned political demonstration? Well, here's what he says, and he's quoting scripture when he does so. Is it not written that my house shall be a house of prayer for all the nations? But you've made it a den of robbers. So if getting right with God demands that I make a sacrifice, and making a sacrifice demands that I buy a right animal, then who can get right with God? It's not rhetorical. Come on.
People with money.
People with money. Exactly. People with money were the ones who could get right with God. So earlier in his ministry, Jesus had said that it'd be harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom than a camel to go through the eye of a needle. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? Rich people are the ones who get to go in the temple and make the sacrifices. They're the ones that are going to enter the kingdom. But Jesus said, there is no way to buy yourself into right relationship. There is no way to buy yourself into right relationship. And for those of us who've been in the tithing class, the very powerful tithing class over the 6 weeks, that includes tithing. We don't buy ourselves into right relationship. Tithing is a response, a reaction, a gratitude. We're not doing it to get right with God. No, Jesus says, no. My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations, all the people. Nobody gets left out. Nobody gets left out. So Jesus clears the way for everyone to be able to enter into that community. To make our journey into Jerusalem, to make our journey down into that Jerusalem of our hearts, that place where on earth as it is in heaven, to make our way to Jerusalem, we need to have our eyes opened to the way. We need to join the parade, to engage our voices, to sing out on the way. And we need to drop down into our hearts and clear the way to get whatever it is that is keeping us from that temple out of the way. We need to get to that place where we know that we are made in the image and likeness of God, where we know our connection to the creative source of all life, and to get to that place, that sense of oneness, we need to clear the way. We need to have our eyes opened to the way. We need to engage our voices along the way. And we need to clear up whatever gets in our way. And this is when we really drop down into our heart center. To enter the temple, we need pure hearts. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. What needs to be cleared out of the way for you to really enter into the temple of God in your own heart right now? Do you know? Do you have eyes to see? And if not, you can ask. You can shout out like Bartimaeus, open my eyes, let me see. Reveal what needs to be revealed, as Rev Darlene is fond of saying. Reveal what needs to be revealed. Let me see. Open my eyes to the way. And then remember that entering this sacred temple, this blessed place, is not a solitary act. It is an act of solidarity. What do you need? Who do you need to be in right relationship with along the way? Whose hands do you need to join? Where is the place you're being called to engage your spirits with other spirits so that we can all get free together? Engage your voice along the way. And what needs to be knocked over, pushed aside, cleared out, so that you can enter that sacred space, the center of God's heart. Heal what needs to be healed. Clear up whatever is in the way. I want to sing a verse for you, with you, of one of my favorite childhood hymns. And then we're going to enter into a time of silent meditation to meditate on these questions. And some of you may know this hymn and sing with me from your own childhood church. Or some of you may know it as the beginning of Chris Williamson's Song of the Soul. So let's sing this together, and then we'll move into our time of meditation. Open my eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Place in my hand the wonderful key that shall unlock and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, thy way to see. Open my eyes, illumine me. Spirit divine. I invite you to close your eyes and settle into your chair. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your breath coming into you. And in a place of deep quiet, ask yourself, are my eyes open? What am I not seeing? Open my eyes. Let me see the truth of who I am, the truth of who the people around me are, the truth of what I'm here to do. Open my eyes. Now ask yourself, where do I need to engage my voice along the way? Who needs me to speak up for them? Who do I need to be in right relationship with on this walk? Where is the parade for me to join on this journey to Jerusalem? And finally, as you drop all the way into your heart, ask what needs to be cleared up. What do I need to let go of? What no longer serves me? Where am I keeping people out instead of letting them in? Where am I keeping God out instead of letting God in? What do I need to push out of the way? And knowing that our eyes can be opened, our hands can be joined, our hearts can be made pure, and we can enter that place where we know that we are living and moving and having our being in God. say thank you. Thank you. Let's join again in song. Open my eyes that I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Place in my hand the wonderful key that will unlock and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee. Ready, my God, thy way to see. Open my eyes, illumine me. Spirit divine.
Would you rub your hands together to just show her this love and appreciation? Our Barbara is so blessed to have you with us. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the divinity in you. And so it is. Thank you so much. A beautiful Palm Sunday experience. We want to thank you for being here, and this is the time that we transition in our service. I want to invite our ushers to come forward, where we have the opportunity to take a moment to acknowledge the many gifts that flow through our lives. We acknowledge our capacity to give. We acknowledge the spiritual community as a place that supports us on our spiritual journey. And so we hold our gifts of tithe and offering as our ushers are coming forward. And Amy, if you want to come on up and prepare for your next song. We hold our gifts of tithe and offering together, and I ask you to bless with this affirmation. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. I am now in perfect balance and flow with the universal tides of giving and receiving. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.
In these places of worship, we believe to see. We don't see to believe, just like that story. We believe to see. That's what this song is about. If at any point during this song you feel as if you need a healing, I invite you to stand and open your arms and just receive. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. Not a single thing is wrong with me. I am healed, healthy, and whole. Not a single thing is wrong with you. with all of my heart, with my body and soul. I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. With all of my heart, sing with me. Believe it, let's create it. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. Come get a healing. It's what we do here. We come from Christian Science, y'all. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe I'm perfect and whole. Yeah. Not a single thing is wrong with me. Sing it with me. Not a single thing is wrong with me. Say something you love about yourself. I love my hair. Not a single thing is wrong with you. You're gorgeous. Not a single thing is wrong with me. Definitely not you. Not a single thing is wrong with. Come on, let's make it as big as we can. We lift up our voice. We lift up our voice and praise for a God that is good, a God all good. We lift up our voice and praise for a God that is good, a God all good, all good, all good, all good. Sing with the all good, all good, all good, all good, all good. Keep it going, oh. Oh, good. Everything is working out for your highest and best. Oh, good. Always. Always, 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 all good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah. I believe, I know, I know, I know, I know. It's all good. Oh, good. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. Let's sing that a few more times. Here we go. With all of my heart, with all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. You are not from sin. You are perfect. That's what I believe. That's what y'all taught me. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole. Oh, oh, not a single thing is wrong. Not a single thing, not a single thing is wrong with me. Turn to someone, tell them something you love about them. Not a single thing is. You're brilliant. You're incredible. You light up the world. Not a single thing is wrong with me. You are so beautiful to me, inside and out. Not a single thing is wrong with you. All right, let's take it again. I lift up my voice. So I lift up my voice and praise for a God that is good, a God all good. We lift up our voice and praise for a God that is good, a God all good, all good, all good, all good. Thank you, oh good, thank you, oh living in the thank you, living in the thank you. Oh good, 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 all good. With all of my heart, with my body and soul, I believe that my God made me perfect and whole.
You were lighting it up out there in San Diego. Would you rub your hands together just to let her know we really do appreciate your making time to be with us. Amy Steinberg, we love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the divinity in you. Come back soon. So we invite our ushers to come forward and our prayer chaplain holding our prayer box to just remind you that if you have a prayer request, you can place it in this box where we hold it in prayer. We also send it to Silent Unity where it's held in prayer as well. So take this opportunity to look around and just extend your gratitude for those that are here. We give thanks for this day, for this beautiful message, for the beautiful song, and most of all for this beautiful life presence that in which we live and move and have our being, and in and through and as us, it expresses all of life. We bless this gift, we bless this spiritual community where we are about helping to heal any case of mistaken identity. May it begin within us. May we have the eyes to see and to know the truth and to be that light in this world. For this we are truly blessed and grateful, and so it is. Amen. Thank you. Sarah, I'd like to invite you to come forward. We have the opportunity tomorrow night to have an extended presentation, and she'll be back with the crafts from Nicaragua. But I wanted her to just have a few minutes to briefly give you a yearly update. She's with us every Palm Sunday to let you know what's taking place in Nicaragua. They're one of our partners that we work with. So would you please welcome Sarah Jumping Woodard. Thank you. Did you all stand up in this service who were on the trip? Yes. Yes, you did. I got all confused. Okay. All right. So I am delighted to be back with you today. We've all been hearing a lot about speaking out in various aspects of our lives, speaking out about violence against women, speaking out about power in and out of government, speaking out about violence in our streets and schools and churches. And we were out yesterday, speaking in our streets, speaking out about splitting up families and evicting neighbors, speaking out about climate change. And it all boils down to the same thing: the need to use our voices and minds and bodies in positive action to be as loving and as just as possible, as neighborly as possible, as wonderfully human as possible, linking us together on this globe spinning through space. So I am here today using my voice to update you on the news from the Center for Development in Central America, a project in which you are a part of the Jubilee House community, based in Nicaragua, linking us as neighbors for the past 24 years. Neighbors connected whether or not we've heard their voices. We work with a cooperative of small organic farmers growing sesame, peanuts, and coffee. We see the harmful effects of our controlling U.S. voices down through history, in our new immigration policies, and even in the NICA Act, a current bill in our U.S. Senate to block all international loans to Nicaragua and targeting Nicaragua for not being, democratic enough. While its supposed dictatorial government offers its citizens open, free Wi-Fi to the world in all the public parks. We share Nicaragua's voices through their art and creativity. We listen as they call us to climate change, striving for 90% renewable energy by 2020, just 2 more years. As Gandhi said, silence becomes cowardice when occasion demands speaking out the whole truth and acting accordingly. And we've been
responding to community voices asking for help since Hurricane Mitch devastated the country almost 20 years ago. From a temporary metal building and a part-time general physician in 1999, our clinic has grown with professional staff providing ultrasounds, home visits with our patients, pediatric care, especially for asthma, wound care, orthopedics, and even minor surgery, including volunteer physicians. Our dental team mostly treats children from feeding centers for the malnourished, and we have a part-time counselor and a lab technician, a weekly vision correction clinic, and hundreds of health education classes and trainings, which have outgrown our space. And so we're building more space to make this building happen. We're building it with volunteer help. You might recognize some people in that picture. Our lives are linked, and our voices can be heard. We speak out as part of humanity, both to visitors who come to see our work and on speaking trips like the one I'm on now. To paraphrase Rick Riordan, your voice is your identity. If you don't use it, you're halfway to indifference already. When we see the web of life that connects us all, then we can use our voices to break down walls that divide us, rather than building more walls to separate us. When we realize that all of humanity are indeed brothers and sisters, then we can speak out through our actions. This is who we, all of us, are called to be, brothers and sisters, voices with and for each other with open hearts, together on this one earth we all call home. Thank you for being part of us and continuing to be part of us. And I hope you can come tomorrow evening to see and hear more. Thank you.
Go, girl.
Would you like to sing this together one more time? Sarah, for all of you who are doing this work in Nicaragua, we want to send you our blessings and our gratitude. We love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. And we behold the divinity in you. Thank you so much. So please do stop by and see her. So last but not least, it is the last Sunday in March, and we want to acknowledge our March birthdays. And I want to give a shout out to Ed Nagel. This young man turned 91 years old. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with God's love in our hearts.